History is not only written by victors, it is etched in bone. It tells of empires rising from obscurity. This is the story of one such lineage,
whose entire existence was forged in the shadow of the greatest predator the Earth has ever known.
Now, let us open the chronicle and chart the rise and fall of this great dinosaur dynasty.
Our story does not begin with the colossal titans of legend,
But in the quiet forests of early Cretaceous Asia, nearly 130 million years ago.
Here, we find the humble ancestors of the line, small, bipedal creatures browsing on low-lying vegetation. They were prey, vulnerable and seemingly insignificant.
But here, the fossil record reveals the first crucial innovation. A small ridge of bone extending from the back of the skull. It was a modest structure, perhaps used for display, but evolution would transform this simple trait. But in this fragment of bone, we see the evolutionary seed of the Great Shield.
The first piece of armor had been forged, an opening move in a defensive arms race that would echo for eternity.
this modest lineage, now bearing the name Ceratopsia, would not remain in its ancestral homeland.
Driven by environmental pressures and new opportunities, they crossed the land bridge into North America.
It was here, on the island continent of Laramidia, during the late Cretaceous, that their golden age truly began. The dynasty had found its proving ground, and it would conquer it.
This new world was lush, fertile, and teeming with opportunity.
But it was also home to an ascendant and terrifying dynasty of predators, the tyrannosaurs.
This rival house was already honing its craft of predation, developing bone-crushing jaws and massive size.
In this cauldron of competition, the Ceratopsian dynasty erupted in an evolutionary explosion.
Their modest adaptations were rapidly amplified, diversifying into a gallery of giants.
This was no longer about simple display. It was an arms race for survival. The dynasty split, developing two distinct strategies. The first strategy was a crown of spears.
One branch, the Centrosaurians, experimented with ornate nasal horns and spectacular spiked frills.
Perhaps for recognition, but undeniably for defense.
The other, the Chasmosaurines, focused on sheer scale. Developing immense brow horns and vast, solid bone shields that covered the vulnerable neck.
We see in the fossil record how their anatomy became their coat of arms.
Each new species, from Styracosaurus with its crown of spears to Pentaceratops with its colossal frill,
was a new regiment, armed with its own standard.
For every evolutionary advance the Tyrannosaurs made in offense, the Ceratopsians matched it in defense. Their biological tools were being perfected, their armor thickened, and their spear-like horns sharpened.
Forged chapter by chapter in the ever-present shadow of their growing adversary.
This explosive diversification, however, could not last.
As the Cretaceous landscape of Laramidia shifted, the arms race accelerated toward its ultimate apex.
The long shadow of the tyrannosaurs consolidated into a single, terrifying form, Tyrannosaurus rex.
This was the Tyrant King, a predator engineered for one purpose: to hunt and kill the largest prey. In response, the Ceratopsid dynasty produced its final, greatest champion.
All the evolutionary experiments, the varied horns, the elaborate shields, were refined into...
This was the dynasty's great trial.
The chronicle was no longer defined by geographic expansion, but by a relentless, face-to-face conflict.
The two great houses were now locked in a struggle that defined the end of an age.
We see the evidence of this trial etched directly into their bones. Here, in the fossil record, is a Triceratops frill, scarred by the bite of a T-Rex, yet healed over. The silent testament of a veteran who survived the assault. We find other remains bearing the unhealed punctures of a successful kill.
This was a war fought on a continental scale, a perfect evolutionary stalemate.
Where the tyrant's bite force was met by the titan's shield.
For millions of years, neither dynasty could claim ultimate victory.
This epic, multi-generational war was fought to a perfect standstill. At 66 million years ago, the dynasty of Triceratops was at its zenith.
The unbreachable wall against which the tyrant king broke.
But history is cruel. The great trial would not be decided by tooth or horn.
A challenger from the sky, an asteroid 10 kilometers wide, struck the Earth.
The world that had forged these two great houses in fire and competition was instantly undone.
The lush forests wilted. The food chains collapsed.
And the dynasty that had perfected the art of defense found itself with no defense against a global winter.
The last Triceratops perished alongside their great rivals, their epic struggle frozen in time.
Their evolutionary story, which we have painstakingly unearthed, thus ended not with a whimper, but with a sudden cosmic thunderclap.
The great chronicle of the Ceratopsians, an epic written in armor and bone over millennia,
Was closed in a single, catastrophic day.
reminding us that even the greatest dynasties, locked in the most intimate of evolutionary dances,
are ultimately subjects to the planet's vast and indifferent power.